Hello guys, welcome to the Techie Circle Sawtooth series. This is chapter 3 where we will be creating a transaction processor smart contracts. As you have seen in this previous slide that we will create this architecture to have a storage persistent and we will be interacting using a REST API. And we already created this network in a previous chapter. You can go back and watch it. And here we will be creating this storage persist smart contract. To create this transaction handler, we will be creating two components, process class and handler class. And for that, we will be using Node.js. So let's jump into the code and start creating it. Okay, so let me pull the Docker image. And as you have already seen this Docker Compose file where I have a REST API interface and a validator. It's already available in a GitHub, and I've explained it in a previous video. If you haven't watched it, go back and check it out. So now I'm doing a Docker Compose up, and I'll mention the file name till the time it is creating and the images. It's creating the containers. I will go and create one folder for transaction processor. Yeah. So I will initialize this, and I mention all this. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I will install Sawtooth SDK. First, let me check Node version. For this, we will be using Node version 10. So I will switch to NVM 10, and yeah, now I have a Node version 10. So I will install Sawtooth SDK. Okay, so let me create a one index file to make an entry point. So it's index.js. Okay, now it's installed. I will also install the CBOR. CBOR, it's a concise binary object representation. It's another binary data serialization format. Okay, so I've imported the transaction processor from here and created. Now I will initialize the validator. If you have seen that the validator is listening on a port number 4004, and I've also created a process environment variable. Now I need to add a handler and then we'll start the network. So I'll create a one handler.js, and I will just give a class name handler, and we will define it later. Let's just complete the index.js first. And here I will import handler file, and I will pass this handler under the add handler method. Okay, now let's come to the handler class, and here I will be importing transaction handler from the Sawtooth processor class. So just extend it. No. And I will also import some of exceptional handler, which is already provided by Sawtooth SDK internal, and invalid transaction, that should be enough. I will import the CBOR as well, that we will use in future. Okay, let's create a constant. So here the family name is always unique. I will name it simple storage, and we can give we should mention a version as well, and this we can use multiple versions in the future that we will see in a future videos. So for the namespace basically, if you see here in the website, it consists of initial 6 of 64 hex generated encryption. So I will just create a Let me create a one hash function from the crypto. I will import the crypto and we'll create a function. I will name it hash and just take an input of x. So it will create a hash of SHA512 and I will just update it into hex and now to lowercase and substring till 64. As you can see that in the Sawtooth documentation, it's mentioned that we need 64 for string length. Let me just do the module exports. Create this as a function return. Yeah, perfect. Also need a address. So for the address, okay, we will be needing extra. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Let's go and let's create a address, and which will also take this x as an input to generate a new address. I'll pass the namespace because the 6-digit has to be namespace, alias 6-digit, and the hash 64 length. Okay, now here I will import the constant which is required here in this. Okay. In the constructor I will pass the family name and an array of a version, because here this is where we can maintain a multiple version, and also we can pass an array of a namespace. We can also manage a array of a namespace in future. So by default, this transaction handler gives a default method which is apply method, which give you a transaction and a context. So we will decode the payload. As I've mentioned that we will be using CBOR, as you can see here. So we expect the transaction will come CBOR encoded. So we will decode the transaction payload here. And now we just assume that how our payload will look like. So maybe we'll having some action. Let's name it store, and an ID, and also the data that which we wanted to store. So assuming this payload will come while the transaction occurred, so we will decode and update the transaction in the blockchain accordingly. So we will check the payload action. If it's empty, nulls, then we will throw an exception that invalid transaction and mention that payload doesn't have action. Let me use this bracelet, that is good. Yeah. Okay, so for the same we can validate for the another variable if the ID is empty, and also if the data, if it's coming or not. And now here we will use switch case. Let me take an action. So now we know that action will be stored, and for that we will use switch case and here action, and the first case will be stored because that we are getting, and here we get this done, and let here create the okay, now we need to create address as well first. Okay, now let address, and we have this address method defined in the address, and we will pass. We will generate the address from this ID which is coming in a payload, and yeah, let's disable it. Okay, so here I will create a one object in which I will encode the payload data which is coming up, and this is what I'm going to store in the blockchain. So I will just set the context, set state, and the store, which I just create, or maybe just create a store entry. Yeah. So now this will store the state in a blockchain. Now by default, if nothing is coming, then we will. If something wrong case is coming up, then we will throw an invalid transaction. Okay, great. So I guess okay. Now let's try to run this. I will just use npm and just check the version 10 node index.js. Okay, so here I've got an error because I didn't initialize the class. I just imported. I have to create an instance of this class, so I will just say const handler is equal to new handler because it's a class. I will just pass it the instant in a handler, and I will run. So you can see here that's connected to this particular validator and registered. So we can check in our Docker, and let's take a log. And now here we can see that the family simple storage version 1.0 and with the namespace is connected. So yeah, we created this smart contract. In the next, we will create a client. So thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.